Community and kind folks, welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host DBJ, and today is the day of alchemy. Why would there be a specific day of alchemy? That depends on you and your tabletop role playing experience and your worldview. Maybe today is the day that the great and powerful and renowned alchemists come together, or it could be some kind of celestial alignment that the greatest alchemists in the world are able to um, use their most valued and legendary concoctions and bring them together today. um, why would there be alchemists in the first place? We already talked about medicines and affecting the body, but today we're going to talk about other things, such as glues and oozes and acids and transformative elements that mythological alchemy gives us for our fantasy role playing. And then maybe we might get into a lot more of the conflict that those who have those same abilities but don't use alchemy might want to have some conflict with the air quote science of alchemy in your fantasy role playing games. And for me, I love the conflict between technology and magic and that middle ground. Maybe alchemy is absolutely needed for the mundane, the people in a community that don't have access to arcane magic or powerful entities and things of that nature. Uh, but Shai says, so how much lead must one consume on the day of alchemy in order to save the planet? Yeah. Eating lead paint chips, turning that lead into gold. Um, yeah, Shai says, pardon my ignorance, but how much alchemy is there actually beyond turning lead into gold? Or is an alchemist just a medieval chemist? I I look at it as a medieval chemist, but I think mythologically speaking, there are these like um, larger than uh, larger than our brains can comprehend ideas of taking alchemical formulas to do things that are well beyond what a chemist could do today. And now I'm sure a lot of that is like a combination of real events plus and real things that happened with chemistry plus like dream states and whatnot. So the idea that you could, beyond the lead to gold idea, there is this. Of course, there's necromancy and using concoctions to bring people back from the dead, which probably was they really weren't dead in the first place, but they were able to come back to life. And the idea that we use a lot of chemicals in our daily lives, but we don't consider them to be alchemical until we pause a little bit to take a look at the thing. For example, gunpowder, anything explosive and gunpowder like was is an alchemical formula. It's the idea of mixing things together, a lot of common chemicals basically together, and it was just a matter of formula, right? The formulae of doing a thing. Is it dried? Is it wet? Does it age? What percentages are mixed together? Is it under pressure or heated or cooled or electrified and that kind of stuff? And then over time, update something. Anyway, no intro today. So we're just going to jump into it. Here, let's see. Yeah, Shai says making gunpowder, the transmutation of the soul with the help of lead. Yeah, I'm going to help you transition to another world. How? With lead. Drew says alchemy was more spiritual than chemical. It was about transmutation of the soul. Yes, there was also this idea of, and I understand this is more towards the apothecary and herbalist we were thinking before, but there was also this idea of internal alchemy, that if you were to consume certain things in certain percentages, um, less like dieting and health, but more of immortality. And oh, I cannot remember where I found this, but there were even individuals who, as they got closer to the end of their life, were known to consume chemicals that would mummify their body upon their death. And it was it's a practice that's outlawed now, but at the time, um, it was considered that within a month or two of your air quotes supposed death, as someone who was aged, elderly, that if you consume specific quantities of a thing in a particular order mixed with regular food, that you would essentially petrify your body, and upon doing so you would ascend, you would it was like an apotheosis of the soul. And so yeah, it was much more than getting rich. It was like the idea of becoming immortal and passing on and becoming this, a great ancestor or something, was pretty incredible. And of course, here I've got a Wikipedia uh, article about alchemy, and let's see. Alchemists attempted to purify, mature, and perfect certain materials. Common aims were, wow, I'm going to butcher this. Chiso- Chisopia, the transmutation of base metals like lead into noble metals, particularly gold. And I'm sure there were other things like gold, silver, iron, um, brass. I'm trying to think of some other noble metals at the time. Platinums, maybe, and some other particularly valuable metals. There was the creation of an elixir of immortality and the creation of panacea is able to cure any disease. The perfection of the human body and soul was thought to result from the alchemical magnum opus, or the great work. The concept of creating a philosopher's stone was variously connected with all of these projects. And I'm imagining like this idea of the philosopher's stone. Let me click on the philosopher's stone here, pop over here. Um, let's see, capable mythic alchemical substance capable of turning base metals in such as mercury into gold, which mercury was very poisonous, or silver. It also called the elixir of life, useful for rejuvenation and for achieving immortality. For many centuries, it was the most sought after goal in alchemy. The philosopher's stone was the central symbol of the mystical terminology of alchemy, symbolizing perfection at its finest, and enlightenment and heavenly bliss. Um, and I'm also thinking that what in fantasy, basically drinking formaldehyde. Yeah, yeah. But yes, essentially it's the same thing. But I'm also thinking that um, alchemy is like the one-handed great wonder. Like, for example, we can think of um in fantasy realms, we often see like fantasy landscapes where you have like great castles dangling off the sides of mountains, and floating land with castles on them held to the ground by great chains and things like that. And the formation of an alchemist being able to create a wall of stone, or an alchemist that's able to hold up that philosopher's stone and just turn a wall into dust and walk through it with a portal or something. I'm thinking alchemy is very transformative, whether it's purifying or turning pure water into wine, or putrid uh, y- you know acid or something of that nature. Maybe even um, driving away or calling towards particular types of animals or beasts or monsters. Heck, even making a place smell good, just simply by transforming the air around them with a philosopher's stone or something like that. Yeah, one person that can do a thing instead of needing 500 people to do it, simply by making a couple of concoctions and having a thing happen. I think is the purview of the alchemist. Now, of course, it's tabletop role playing. Anything that explodes and catches on fire, people absolutely love that. But I'm also thinking, the petrification of people, the instantly freezing in the place by covering something with ice, even though it's the middle of summer, um, the electrification of a thing, the uh, the X-Men Colossus character, who not the most popular character, but anyway, in the X-Men, Colossus could turn his skin into metal. Osmium steel, they used to call it. I don't know what osmium steel is, but anyway, so his skin, or maybe his entire body, could turn into metal. And could you imagine one soldier or a platoon of soldiers that drinking a concoction turns literally their flesh into bronze or brass, or even um, well worked steel, or some other kind of metallic. And I don't mean that they become a construct. I mean they become living metal, and that would be pretty amazing as well. So yeah, Drew, I do agree with you there. Perfection is just as much a delusion as control is. People who seek that simply have no zen. Um, it's Yes, it's like the although some would say that the the circular cycle of seeking perfection and then becoming comfortable where you're at, the zen of you being yourself, is the ultimate goal, and then it goes in a whole big circle, right? It's um like, I kind of have a philosophy that it's nothing wrong with seeking perfection, knowing that you'll never get it, right? And it's kind of it's a contrarian method of thinking that is difficult to hold on to, because the two don't go together. But you know, I don't know. I feel like it's a great way to think of. Osmium is a metal. Oh, okay. Oh, I never even looked it up. I never even bothered. I'd always thought it was a a comic book. Like, okay, eye roll. Here's the excuse for why something has the thing with the thing. Hey, JL. So anyway, Red Dice Diary says, I always saw alchemists, at least in RPG terms, as a wizard type who specialized in potions and explosives. Although I appreciate that's an oversimplification. Yeah, and I'm hoping that we can kind of get out of the oversimplification today, and to expand the scope of our alchemists in our world, to go and basically for story elements. For example, um of course we know about the biological transformations. Technically, how hags are mythologically thought of and used, hags are alchemists too, right? They're always doing these concoctions out in the swamp, and people go to them, and even though we hate them, we want them because I want a love potion, I want this potion to do this thing, healing potions, transformative potions, and things. But because they come up with first of all, everything doesn't need to be liquid, but if it is going to be, um, you can very much have things that, when you pour this concoction around your house. Okay, the Invisible Man is a perfect example of an alchemic, a person who is involved in alchemical processes to transform themselves. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is another version of the thing, right? Um, in the case of a person who is trying to perfect something, and that's the story part of it, right? The alchemists aren't evil. They are often ostracized, and they have a thought in their head about the transformative nature, and if they could just unlock the secret of the science to do a thing, they could achieve some kind of power. um, we can also think of the alchemists as cheaters, right? They're wizards who are trying to cheat the system. Um, Not that they have to be cheaters, but to get more drama and conflict into it, it might take 17 years of magical study in a wizard school, just to become a first level wizard. But an alchemist can kind of circumvent that by, if I mix these couple things together and it only takes me a few hours, I can do the exact same thing, right? And so that practice might be banned, or it might be brand new. It might be relegated to the underworld of a society, especially if you have like powerful wizards who control society. Human beings that don't have access to that may need it. We forget that it takes a lot of energy and resources to educate a wizard. which is why, like, one wizard with a fireball isn't as powerful as 10 wizards with magic missile. Um, it, faster to teach them, easier to use, far more accurate. Most people will be murder killed by a magic missile. The rest of it is just ego. Right? Mm-mm-mm. Hey, oh, thanks, man. I expect it depends on a lot on whether you want to just have it as an RP background element or if you want specific rules or systems for it. Um, Also, the fun part we talked about this. The fun part of um, crafting, because I kind of wanted to make this a week of crafting, is the idea of gathering the materials together, the prep, the work, the aftermath, right? The prep of it. Do we know anyone that's an alchemist and is renowned enough, or are they just snake oil salesmen? Are they one hit wonders, or are they multi talented to create alchemical formulas that we need for our group or society or our faction or whatever? How difficult is it to gather those things, like you mentioned, like sulfur, phosphorus, arsenic, limestone. I mean, we can think of all kinds of powders and minerals and liquids and even noble gases. I don't. How do you collect noble gases in a medieval realm? It's fantasy. There's possibilities for things like that. So, how do you gather those things? And of course, all the biological elements, plants, seeds, barks, leaves, nectars, and things like that out in nature, the mosses, the mushrooms, and such, and then bringing it back. And then how do you process those things? Do you just pull it off a tree and it works, or does it need to be aged or dried or boiled, and et cetera, et cetera? Maybe you need to have a laboratory. Do the PCs have one? Do they know someone that has a laboratory to get the thing done? And then making sure no one knows that it's being done, because there might be interlopers or spies or people who are willing to sell the information that the player characters are gathering something. Maybe that's a mission the player characters are on, a heist, to find out exactly why someone is trying to create a lab and what are they creating in their lab to do a thing. Um, you know, a thing I love to have is, the best part about a lab is all the strange goings on in the lab. If you're going to have a lab, you got to have barrels of things, dangerous materials filled everywhere, right? Drew says, and yet I've never seen that in any setting. The wizards also had to take classes in the ethics of wizardry. Hmm. 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 Yeah, it takes a lot of energy to teach people a thing. It's why most of us aren't brain surgeons, right? It takes a lot of money and effort and resources and time to become brain surgeons, even though we have all that knowledge at the palm of our hand in a cell phone, right? Scheiss is gathering materials. How about making all the beakers and tubes and hoses and lab equipment needed to perform alchemy? Exactly. Or do you just order them from Kong's glass? Yeah, exactly. Like we love to see ourselves, forges and foundries that I mentioned earlier in the week, laboratories. But it's like, who makes all this stuff? And how was it made? Yeah. And don't mention mushrooms. We talked about those yesterday. Yep, mushrooms. Hell yeah. Red Dice says, I wonder how you could work this in Knave, where there are no classes and you use spell books with a single spell each to cast. Maybe you could combine elements to create an alchemical solution that allows you to achieve an effect. Yes, OSR mushrooms for life. Yeah, who's to say someone doesn't specialize in such a thing? We often see here's the thumbnail I use, right? And here's a person with all the beakers and um uh, the beakers and other concoctions around themselves, and usually I didn't see this in a book. Usually we also see them surrounded by a bunch of books. Maybe the players must gather a specific book to do a specific thing to get the specific effects, right? And it might not just be one book, it might be three books. Or someone ripped the pages out of a book and they've got to get them back. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Knave could easily do that. Knaves coming out too. Shadow Darks coming out, or In the Hands of People. I can't remember. But so yes, if players want to do it, I would absolutely I would make the adventure, the prep of it. Creating the lab. Maybe they need a glass blower. Who knows? I don't know. All the wooden. I guess glass tubing is possible. Copper tubing or something. When I Heathen says, I bet PCs could make money crafting alchemical equipment, not just potions themselves. Yep, the equipment itself. And then, of course, um, protecting. You've got the prep, you've got the work now, so you've got all the things you need. So, how long does it take to do a thing? Is it dangerous? How do you, do you go on Monster or Indeed to look for a sage or person to craft the thing? Is it a player character doing it? Or do they hire somebody to do it? And then the aftermath, after you get the thing, are there unwanted consequences? Like, does it boil down to a simple tincture with a little drop of an element that you just drop into the ground, but it took 50 gallons to make it? Where do you take the stuff that you cast off, right? I don't know. And maybe that's where oozes come from. Speaking of components, I heard of an interesting idea from Mr. Welch of Mystara fame that being an absolute stickler for spell components is essential to prevent absurd abuse of magic in your game. Oh yeah, yeah. Now I don't even think sticklers. I even just think using it, right? I'm a big proponent of sticking to using the thing that exists in the game. That spell components, the verbal components. Can you speak? Can you speak underwater, or are you choking on poison gas or something? Um, can you see your target when you're casting a spell? Do you have free reign of moving your hands, or do you have a crossbow in one hand, a staff in your other hand, a magical focus in your third hand, and grabbing out spell components with your fourth? Right? If you're climbing up a cliff wall, do you have your hands available to cast a spell, or are they needed to hold on to the reins of that flying griffin that you also want to fly on or something? And then, of course, the spell components themselves. You know, People may not know what magic is. Like, they don't know what you're saying, but they know you're probably casting a spell. And how many wizards have a spell component on their pouch? Oh, like all of them. So taking the book and your components away could take or heavily mitigate something. City guards or even a young orphan thief or something. Yeah, when I hear this says, yeah, in ye olden days, paper and parchment were expensive, and bookbinding was a special skill. So wizard spellbook with no spells in it would be valuable, which is why it cost money to put spells into spell books in the first place. It wasn't I mean, yes, it was a money sink, but it's also the idea of specific inks had to be formulated. That you couldn't just buy it off of a shelf, or you didn't want to buy those inks off a shelf. You wanted specific inks made for that. Again, like you said, bookbinding was literally a career. Even till today, how many role playing game books have been purchased and people complain about the bookbinding, right? Yeah. Shay says, so you'd probably have to make a lot of visits to the alchemist to stay stocked up on spell components because they've got a lot of bat guano. Yep. I always thought you could train some kind of animal to sniff out bat guano in a major city, in a major fantasy city, to find somebody who's probably dangerous and going to cast a fireball spell. I mean, why wouldn't cities that know magic exist have a go through people's stuff to go, oh, I see you've got a pearl. What kind of magic items are you identifying? Right? Like, they might have a list of materials to gather. Even the guards may not even know why. But if you have a wizards, the council of seven in your city, and the council of seven is like, yeah, we don't want any other wizards in our city. Go confiscate these items. And the guards are like, the boss, why are we taking copper rods and pearls and bat guano? Because I told you to. You know. Um, yeah, Red Dice says Shadow Dark PDFs have been sent to backers, but don't think hard copies are out yet. Yeah, I think the PDFs are out on that, and Knaves. uh, um, Ben Milton from Questing Beast, his Knave second edition. I think he's releasing as it's progressing. He's releasing more materials for it, if that makes sense. And then there's Karen. Karen is free. It falls in that category. Yep. Uh, Red Dice Diary says this is the sort of thing I'd love to include. I really want to use the botanist, yep, and forthcoming geologist handbook to push the material component aspects in a setting. Um, I would love it. I I tried this many years ago, and I would love to have this happen where instead of a person picking the spells that they want or effects that they want, let's get away from spells, but like spells, alchemical things, whatever the case might be, instead of picking that, even clerics, right? Instead of you as a player going through a book and picking what you want, instead the materials you gather create the effects. So if you're in a place that has belladonna, I'm trying to pull something out of my ass here, belladonna, wolf's bane or something, then you can only create the effects of the materials you've gathered together. And maybe you could even layer like, um there's something that happens with what you gather, and then there's a process that you're using to process it, and then it has an effect at the end. And I would love to do that. I would absolutely love to have that happen. Yeah, One Eye Heathen says you could use Mage Hand to hold a spell component. Often spell components go unaddressed in campaigns. I agree with you, and I think Mage Hand is a little bit too. I don't want to say overpowered. I don't feel like there's a balancing effect to it. But yes, you would absolutely do that. And there's a rule. I mean, 5e has rules for casting spells. Although I happen to like Knave and Cairn's use of spells. That if you want to cast a spell, it requires both hands. Um, so my default is that one spell book holds all your spells. By the way, there, Red Dice. I don't like the idea of needing another book. Every book is a different spell. I'm just like, nah. It just you have one book. You just keep putting more spells in it. But if you want to cast a spell, you gotta hold. It requires both your hands. Either the book's in one hand and something's in another hand. The book's in your backpack, but you're doing something with your hands. You need both hands. Yeah, no one. Just be careful. No one wants to take an arrow to the spell pouch. Damn it! I didn't take any hit point damage. And everyone's like, "Why? You've only got 3 hit points." Yes, but the arrow went through my spell pouch, my component pouch. Yep. Bat guano sniffer dogs, medieval fantasy bomb squads. Oh yeah. Oh hell yeah. Yeah. Uh, I do. Drew's like, I still hear Karen when someone says Cairn. Yes, I yes. It's an unfortunate aside, um, and I don't know why the 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 name Karen is associated now with a thing, but anyway, it's pretty. Yes, I do hear Karen as opposed to Cairn. Would I hear about those kind of things? Now it could also be, listen, our alchemists could be tasks. The mission of the player characters is to find and maybe stop someone who has a one or more alchemists working for them. Our big bad evil guy could have a plan, and that plan is to have their lieutenants, scattered over the countryside, gather knowledgeable sages or alchemists. The PCs find out that, oh, their favorite sage is gone. Why they leave? And someone's, some onlooker or something's like, oh, old man so and so never left their house, but they've been tasked by the nobility to move to here. I hear a great lab is being created for them, but that's just, um, rumors. And the PCs might be thinking like, are they being recruited? Maybe an alchemist was kidnapped to perform a particular act, and that act could be any number of things, turning their soldiers into powerful beings of whatever, using specific concoctions. Maybe there are, the lead to gold thing. It's perfectly fine as well with alchemy, but also alchemy can be used to destroy a dark wood using necrotic acids or gases or something like that. Maybe there are um, uh, uh, transformative elements. Hey, I want my castle. I want a salve that you can rub on the stone of my castle to turn it into adamantine or mithril or whatever. Or I want my moat filled with a living chemical that's like nothing, a moat that's nothing but black pudding or gray ooze or whatever. I don't know which of the oozes doesn't destroy stone but destroys flesh or whatever. But anyway, but yeah, I mean, and a number of your lieutenants PCs go kill. They think it's the big bad evil guy who's got alchemists working for them, who is able to empower some of your baddies. Right? It would be kind of cool if that orc horde isn't just a bestial and like running down thing. Maybe they've got tubes on their hip, and one person throws a tube and it creates it just releases smoke, like an ever filling bottle. And the PCs are like, oh, I can't see the mist and the smoke and stuff, right? And then another orc comes about and throws it in front of the player character, and they smell the stuff and they pass out. And then another orc throws a concoction and it spills at another PC's feet, and they're frozen in a block of ice, right? And they're like, wow, are they skilled to do this? Maybe someone gave that to them. And then you have clues leading to a thing. Hey, orcs aren't known, in my world, aren't known to be alchemists. Where are they getting it from? And then the PCs are like, well, we only know of 3 really great alchemists, and 2 of them are our allies. Where's the third one? The third one disappeared. Oh, and then now you have a great MacGuffin, right? The MacGuffin could be releasing the alchemists from their work because they've been chained into their lab. Come to find out, the alchemist is kind of happy here. It's like, oh, I'm getting to do what I love to do. I don't know what it's being used for. One-Eyed Heathen's like, I totally heard Karen and imagined a Karen throwing bombs demanding to see a tavern manager. Yeah. I ordered grog, and this grog is terrible. And everyone in the place is like, grog's supposed to be terrible. It's just watered down alcohol. Red Dice says, that could be a cool timer on a task. You're racing to stop the bad guy before he can gather the ingredients to brew his ultimate potion. Hell yeah. Yeah, I mean, the transformative nature of a potion, right? Like maybe there's some kind of elixir, or we've heard of the Lazarus Pit. There's a DC Comics bad guy who's very, very popular, Ra's al Ghul, who has been what's another one? Randall Savage is another one from the comic books, and they've been known to they are immortal bad guys. Often Batman villains and some other adversaries, stuff, some other characters, but basically Batman. And Ra's al Ghul in the Lazarus Pit, he's been known to, oh, we think he's dead, but he's now alive because his followers brought him back to the Lazarus Pit, and he's been brought back. What if a bad guy has the equivalent of a Lazarus Pit? Or maybe every time they take a dip in the Lazarus Pit, they come out and they're different. They can become anything. They take a dip in the Lazarus Pit, they come out and they're an ogre. And then as the PCs gain more expertise, this person's like, oh, I need something else. And someone dumps the dead body of a Medusa in it. And the bad guy's like, yes, and goes into the Lazarus Pit and then comes back out. And he's got like, his eyes are a glow and turns his followers to stone. And he's just like, yes, this is my power now, whatever. Right? Yep. One-Eyed Heathen says, oh, you could have fantasy versions of drug-addicted soldiers. Hell yeah. Like, oh, that felt great. You turned me into a minotaur? Hells yeah. What, I grew a head off the side of my neck and now I'm Etten, whatever. Two-headed monster, right? This feels awesome. Yeah. Maybe like the Jem'Hadar from Deep Space Nine hooked up to some combat drug. Why the hell not, right? And who's to say that combat drug isn't also a bad guy regulator, right? Like, oh, it turns them into a monstrous thing that makes them a badass on the battlefield. But with just a simple click of a thing, right? I can emulate them in fire, and they run across the battlefield on fire. Witness me, right? Yeah. Mm-mm-mm. Cold War movie Doctor Strangelove. Yep, satire of Cold War politics. One of the characters is named Bat Guano. I did not know that. I gotta take a look at that movie. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but yeah, it's all about Cold War antics. Uh, yeah, the dark side of that. It includes the comedic gems as "There's not fighting in the war room." I forgot about that. Yeah, there's no fighting in the war room. Sure, I suppose. Red Dice says you could then have some cool mission to cut off the baddie supply line to slow down or stop their armies. Yes, especially if they have to gather those things together, right? I mean, some or hey, during a fight, five little tricky goblins leave the battlefield, and one PC is like, I don't care, they're just goblins, and someone else is like, no, those little five goblins are running back to resupply the enemy. They're going to run back and get the alchemical things that are going to make these guys badasses. And it's like, oh, I did not know that. Dune, the Harkonnen or Harkonnen, um, it the Baron is often visually shown having a lot of alchemical, surgical and alchemical things done to him. Most recently in the recent Dune movie, which is the one that comes to mind because it's the most recent one I've seen, where um, uh, uh, Baron Leto breaks the tooth in the back of his mouth and he spits out the poisonous gas, alchemy, right? And then Baron Harkonnen is up in the corner with the surgical, anti gravity things in his back. I don't know if that's so alchemical, but it is surgical. Having surgical body parts, I guess, would be considered that kind of thing. But also, he's taking a bath in that weird oil slick kind of thing to heal himself. That's alchemical. Um, the soldiers, the kind of alchemical. The soldiers in Dune, the Sardaukar are they're doing the religious thing, and then they're having the people that are held upside down and their throats are being slit and the blood and that kind of thing. That could be yep. Drug addicted soldiers are an absolute must so they can have a good time in Vegas. Yeah, addicted soldiers. Yeah, witness me. You mean shiny and chrome? Yep. Um, um, when I hear this, says, "Oh, I loved the Baron Harkonnen just for his sheer brutality." I've heard it pronounced Harkonnen, but whatever. I like Harkonnen. I like the harsher har at the beginning for me. I just feel like it sounds like someone spitting on you, Harkonnen. Like in the back of the throat. I like that. Yeah. Oh, and yes, the spice melange. Yeah, the mentats that have that red drug. Yes, the mentats, as shown, the guild navigators, okay, and the mentats. Well, the mentats take a um in the old movie they actually had like an Altoids box, like a little metal box, and they would like kind of sniff the spice melange. It was like cinnamon, looked like cinnamon, which would be an easy thing to well, why make up something, just buy cinnamon and make it a drug. And they would sniff it. The mentats would roll their eyes back in their heads. Now we know that they are the substitute for computers in the Dune series, but it did give them abilities. And then the guild navigators had in the recent Dune movie were seen when they passed the power over to Leto. They're seen in like the kind of like ivory outfits with the domes and they're breathing the gases. That's alchemical as well. Just as what's the animated series Arcane. In the Arcane series there were the drug addicted people that had the domes and they were like skeletal kind of in such. So yeah. So yeah, sniffing a drug to either really or mechanically really or artificially due to like addiction think that you're like superhuman, it is alchemical as well. Yep, that's what you do with it. You sniff it. So spice is nothing but spice coke. No, I think I think it's the ultimate MacGuffin. I think the spice melange is a material that allows so many things. Um in the books, it opened up your mind for psychic power if you were to consume and breathe enough of it to allow the navigation through the stars so you wouldn't impact stuff. But in the movie, it was used to fold space, and the writer has retconned liked it so much that they retconned it that spice allows space the navigators to fold space. So initially it was to dodge space debris, but then it just became folding space. And even in the movie, they really don't explain it. They just show this tube-like starship that's disgorging other smaller craft that the navigators have. Yeah, when I heathen, yeah, I believe spice is eaten and breathed in and in the water. Yep, yep. And the Fremen breathe it in because it's on the surface of it's spice blow. It comes from the worms, so they just breathe it in the air. But no wonder they think they can bend time and space. But yeah, something doesn't need to be liquid. It can be powdered, or it could be, an alchemist can easily create rocky, chalk like materials that can be used for various elements and things. I mean, dwarves down in their dwarven holds or something could have this chalk like material that can be placed into cracks and crevices. And they take a little hammer and break a chunk off, and maybe they drop it into water or something, and it transforms it into something else. Maybe it purifies it, or they put it into a crack, and it could just be a very stable explosive or something. That material could be used. They could break off a little chunk and put it into a cup of water, and it could give them nutrients for the whole day or something. So yeah, it doesn't need to be. And of course, an alchemist can create a bottle that has some kind of gaseous material in it that does a thing like smoke and mist, something obscuring. It could do something that is hallucinogenic or knocks someone out or paralyzes them. And again, with the incapacitate them or petrify an individual or transform them. Juice, uh, Drew says, speaking of powder, I like to go to powdered mummies, which is something people used in real life. Yes, as a matter of fact, still are, there are tribes of people who cover themselves in ash and powder, and I actually took that idea. So the idea is that people would cover their skin in ash and powder to protect themselves from pests and things like that in the environment. So you wouldn't get mosquito bites and ticks, and there were plant life that could irritate the skin, like a poison ivy, and you would cover yourself in powder. And I stole that idea for one of my cinematic environs books. Uh, Blasted lands. And in the blasted lands, there were different colored powders you could cover your skin to gain resistance against a thing. Like there was like a black powder, a red one, an ivory one, and you gained resistance against the thing, but you couldn't wear armor. It had to be like you basically had to strip down and cover your body with it. So yes, using powder to create mummies. Why not? Why wouldn't you? Or that powder could be rubbed on the skin, like I said, powder could be rubbed on the skin to have a particular, maybe a defensive measure against a thing. Or it could be like player characters go against Orc Tribe covers themselves in a weird blue powder. Every time PCs go to attack orcs with blue powder, it kind of puffs off their skin, and it causes an allergic reaction. Make your con saving throw or something like that, right? And the PCs are like, what the hell? Like, oh, there's other orcs that are in like yellow powder and purple powder. And the PCs are like, I don't want to find out what that is. Hey, somebody get a spell that sprays water and wash them off or something. Right? So yeah, you could have that kind of effect as well. Um, um, there are potions that you don't swallow, but you take into your mouth and can spit out, like potion of fire breathing. Actually, I think you do drink it, but anyway, you could have those kind of effects too. Drink a thing like Duke Leto with the poison gas. Drink a thing, and then you can breathe out something, right? Like uh, drink a thing and water breathing. Drink a concoction, swallow a concoction or whatever, and you can fire breathe or breathe out a poison gas, or you have super breath like Superman, or something of that nature as well. Uh, let's see. I vaguely remember Paul saying something like that in the books, mentioning that just being on Arrakis, you get exposed to it. Yes, and in the movie, it's not. It's very subtle, but in the movie, when Paul first puts his feet in the sand, when the one of the spice mining vehicles is, they got to get all the people out. Um, there's a there's fairy fire in the air, and they do the thing where they focus in on his hand, where his hand flips over back and forth, because he does it at home where he puts his hand into the water of his planet, and then he does the same thing where he grabs the soil of his planet, and then when he gets to Arrakis, he puts his hand into the sand of the planet, and he starts having those flashbacks and flash forwards, I guess, precog, postcog, precog dreams, and that's the thing. Yeah, that's why the people on Arrakis have blue eyes. Uh, it might be interesting. Red Dice says it might be interesting if constant exposure to alchemical solutions had a physical side effect, like the Fremen's eyes going blue. Which in the very OSR, we love ourselves clues. Listen, anybody that plays OSR, we all know it's deadly. But the thing is, gathering clues as to what hazards, dangers, obstacles in front of you are there. And it could be, hey, why do the orcs and the trolls and the kobolds all have purple eyes? Well, it could be because of something that they're breathing or consuming in the region, which leads to why all of them have some weird side effect or special ability, which could be a gift that the player characters gain, right? Maybe they're eating a plant or something, or there's a one of them is skilled in alchemy and they're mixing a concoction together that takes this plant, like Black Panther. Black Panther and Wakanda is absolutely, they have a tradition of alchemy to use the heart-shaped herb that's purple and glowing, and they take it, and then you see that they use a pistol and mortar, and they crush it down or whatever, and then it is kind of like a soupy thing, the mixture that they drink, that either gives them the power of the Black Panther, and then taken again, it takes it away, right? And so this could be a thing. One Eye Heathen says there's a tribe in West Africa that covers themselves in red powder as a way of bathing in a super dry environment. It absorbs the oil from the skin. And this is actually shown, if you want to take something, there are people that use that same red powder as a clay in their hair as well. And it's actually shown because they're one of the mining tribes in Wakanda is shown when they have the red uh, uh, red clothing, reddish type skin, and their hair is like dreadlocked with like a red clay, and it is a way to. I mean, they're really, you can actually buy powder that helps you. It's like it's dry washing, and where you can wash your skin in a dry environment when you don't have water and you don't want to waste the water, you use the powder to wash your skin. So yeah, absolutely. Uh, Zamar says, have we already defined what we consider alchemy? If not, I propose a compound made of at least one material that goes through a process to create a stronger effect than what would naturally be attributed to the material. I like that definition. No, we didn't. We didn't define it at all. This can range from making a poisonous mushroom into a more potent, to a gold object more golden, or lead into gold, right? That is a big thing of alchemy, that in the difference between, you could have this difference between an herbalist and an alchemist, that the herbalist excuse me, can find natural things, mushrooms and plants and seeds and barks and whatever, and go out there and gather those things together, and they have an effect. But the alchemist takes it and through a process, and that process could be heating, cooling, grinding, aging, uh, smoking, electrified, right? Cooled off, whatever. All of those things together. It's how alcohol is made. Technically, all alcohols are just basically alchemy, right? So the yeast of creating a thing, the oh, what's it called? Pickling of things. Heck, even smoking meats and salting and smoking meats is an alchemical process. It may be very simple, but it's still an alchemical process. And what's the process to do? We need to age and protect these food items because we're going to travel a long way. What is it? Mayonnaise is alchemical. It's a what is it? An egg and oil suspension, something like that. Um, but yes, I absolutely agree with you there, Z. Red Dice says, "Yep, some ancient societies used oil and the like to wash as well. Maybe the oil has an alchemical suspension in it, and who knows, things like that." Drew says, "When I read the Dune books as a teenager, I put cinnamon into all my meals, like on pizza. Still, I never got blue eyes." Yeah, I used to do weird things like that as a kid. Like, wait a minute, in the movie they did this thing. I know I can do that. Yeah, yep. I love it too, Heathen. So the gray-skinned, wrinkly person might be a telltale sign they are super fast. That, yep. Mm-mm-mm. Heathen says, "I've used dry shampoo when I couldn't bathe due to medical issues." Yep, yep, absolutely. I'm with you there, and I don't like the taste of mayonnaise. Oh, Sophie's time. Hey, Sophie, Soph, you gonna say hello to the people? My kitty is in front of my camera. You may see her tail or the back of the top of her head. Yeah, you got to look at the camera. You got to look up here. Um, Come on, say hello to the people. Hey, kitty. Yeah. Mwah, 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 mwah. You'll get your head scratchies. Ooh, there we go. Yeah, mayonnaise is a blight on humanity. Tasty, but still a blight. I don't know about tasty, but yeah. Yes, yes, she eats. I give her head rubbies. I place my hand on her side because she loves the warmth as she curls up next to me or in the little crevice between my legs, and then she kind of nods off a little bit, and then she goes away because she's done, and then she tells me, "Hey, listen, show's almost over. It's time to come back to it." Yeah, I mean it's almost perfectly timed usually, within an hour, 15 minutes or something like that. Yeah, pretty funny. She is a 5 minute alarm. Lastly, with the alchemists as well, um, it may take many years to learn a specific alchemical formulae or something like that. But it's also possible that with the alchemists, why is it that um, the airship can float in the air? Well, the balloon that lifts it into air or the process that was used on the wood can lift it into the air. So it may not be natural with trees that are anti-gravity. Maybe there's an alchemist that's doing a thing. um, Alchemists could also use and abuse a natural element. So, for example, maybe druids can create some good berries, but an alchemist comes along and makes these like hyper effective, um, what do you call it? Like hyper healing concoctions that don't just rejuvenate you a little bit, but like it's like it makes people superhuman or something. Um, there's also the idea that alchemists are used by one or more powerful people in power, nobility, rich merchants, or whatever, person of powerful faction. Like, could you imagine a thieves guild or criminal guild? Let not say necessarily thieves, but a criminal guild that uses alchemy. And what do they use? They use acids to burn bars so they can get through them. They use concoctions to turn invisible or to get rid of the scent of the Sophie, to get rid of the scent of uh, tracking dogs or the displacer beasts that are used in this particular city to hunt down the criminals. And what does it do? It disrupts their noses. Maybe the alchemist is able to duplicate the effects of other monsters' abilities given to a population. So, do you want to smell like a troglodyte? Here's an alchemical formula. Do you want to be able to touch a thing and have a necrotic touch or something like that? Here's cockatrice formula you can put on your skin. If hey, here's another potion that lets you heal like a troll or whatever. Here's another potion that I'm trying to think of some other monster abilities, and I can't think of any. Here's the breath of a gorgon, and they could literally be named those things, right? And given to a populace, which means here's some other clues, right? So a clue could be here's the back of Sophie's head. Hey, kitty, kitty. Yeah, meow. I love you too. Yeah, I own you. Yeah, you own me. I own you. Yeah, yeah, I'm your property. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Everyone thinks I'm the big bad evil guy. I'm the lieutenant. I'm only a CR5. Yeah, you're CR16. Yeah, you are. Mm-hmm. You have 175 hit points, all divided by 9. It looks like I'm the only one on Team Mayo. Yeah, yeah. This is what it's. I'm trying to do a little keto thing here. I'm you know no, what is it? No white foods, no rice, potatoes, breads. Yeah. It's horrible. I love it. It's horrible. And I'm actually losing a bit of weight too. So, um, that's neither here nor there. So, lastly, um, the knowledge that alchemists have can also be a specific mission unto itself. Maybe player characters need to go to far off lands or even learn to have those things written down from people from other distant worlds like fey creatures or other worldly beings that people learn from. Maybe there's you know you really don't want to have a MacGuffin of one, but maybe there's one or very few people who are willing to even give the knowledge of certain things away to the player characters or to NPCs, and the players must do perform a mission to get a thing, right? Hey, I want my Frostbrand sword, and someone says, "Well, you need to go get the unmelting ice from this distant land," and so the PCs go on a mission to bring it back to be forged with the sword, and then okay, so can I get my Frostbrand sword? Well, not yet. After your masterwork sword is forged, which that's a whole nother thing, right? It also requires the 3 drops of blood from the boiling back of a Remoraz, and the PCs are like, "What the hell is that? And how am I supposed to get that back?" And then they make the sword, and then it's soaked into the unmelting ice of the Great North or whatever, and then so alchemists are great mission uh, when you're out of ideas, send the PCs on a mission to gather a MacGuffin to bring it back. And usually it can be a person, maybe someone knowledgeable with some books or something, but it could be a place that something is done. For example, we talked about laboratories, but maybe those laboratories need to be constructed in a particular place, a ley line or something of that nature. And of course, we're talking about the day of alchemy, so it could be celestially um, important that a thing is done at a particular time and day as well. I love Brit. Don't get me wrong. I love Brit too. There, Drew. Oh, I love myself some Brit so much. All right, Heathen, have a great one. Good night, good night, good night. Zamar says, I would recommend letting players mix and match things. If you are using D&D, just give them random plants as part of their rewards. A curious player will ask if they can make them into potions. Oh, hell yeah. Hell, they better. Yeah, at my table, you better come up with some great ideas because I'm probably going to go like, I didn't plan for this. I mean, yes, you can do a thing. And then I put some handrails on it. But yeah, Zamar goes on to say, let them. Have them write down the process. Have them roll on an intelligence or nature roll based on the result. Yep. Of the roll. Give them Roll, give what they make a boon effect or a bane effect, and tell them that is what doing that does from now on, and then that becomes a real thing in the world. So I love what you're saying here, Zamar. I mean, when in doubt, you can always have someone make a roll, and then guess what? It becomes canon, right? If you don't know, let's find out. Now, mind you, you may not want to immediately, and this is where the alchemical thing kind of runs in the favor of the storyteller, because I'm vibing off of what Z has to say here. So Zamara is saying, like, well, if they get random things and they want a thing to happen, but here's the thing too, alchemy requires a process. So maybe, so you want to create an explosive. You got this plant and you want to make explosives, and you're not showing it, but you're rolling your eyes like, fuck, they want to make explosives, they want to ruin my world. Okay, in order to do the thing, you need a process to process whatever it is you've got gathered. You want to make these special, hey, we took seeds from the treant and the other living plants that we killed. Do they do anything? And you're going like, I don't know. Oh shit. All right, well, we have to have a process for this. So you're going to have to make a roll, some kind of intelligence check, or you're going to need to find someone that knows what to do with it, or find a book that tells you a thing to do with it. And that alchemist doesn't need to be classically like like in the thumbnail, right? Could that alchemist be a druid or a hag or something in your world? Hell yeah. Maybe there's a naga or rakshasa that's like, oh, I'm not an alchemist, but I can sure point you to one if you do something for me with that thing you have that you're trying to get an effect from. And here we come with compound stories, right? And then at the end of it, you might go, oh, I know how to control this, right? And then even after all of that, if the players gain a material, it's going to be in limited quantity. And that limited quantity could be limited by age. Hey, if you take this thing out of the thing, then the MacGuffin will age over time. You've got 9 days to get it done, right? It could be spoiling effect, right? You take a tomato. Hey, if you pick it too early, it's not very good. It's just a green tomato. You eat it when it's ripe, it's perfect. If it goes overripe, it's ruined. So that's another thing as well. Drew says you need a cat on your lap to make the alchemy work. Yeah, she is basically like, oh, this is going to stop. This is going to stop soon. Oh yeah. Zamar says you can even go further on the place. You can only make this in the mountains or in the swamps. They may not understand why, but it could be described as natural and magical properties. Exactly, very folklorish, right? Like it's fantasy, and a lot of us. I'm primarily focusing on fantasy, but this is fantastical. Hey, you could see the back of her head. But yeah, we're focusing on fantasy, and the fantasy of it could be, guess what? To finish the Philosopher's Stone, it's got to be made during the solstice with, I don't know, 6 progenitors or something, like, right? Like it could. We don't need to be scientific in the modern sense. We can be scientific in the classical sense. For example, when I typed in ancient alchemy, it spit out the 7 stages of alchemical process are calcination, distillation, separation, conjugation, fermentation, distillation, and coagulation. Let's see if I can. Let's copy this. Let's see, copy, and I'll stick it down here into the chat. Watch out, kitty. And then paste this in. So that's pretty interesting. Some of these off the top of my head, I'm not quite certain of, but like calcination, I'm thinking of some calcifying a thing. Uh, Distillation is dissolving. Separation is separating the thing. So like separating the skin, opening up a seed, right? Take the shell off the seed or something, or separating it into its components, removing the flesh off of the meat. Conjugation, putting 2 things together. Fermentation, it's the alcoholic process, vinegar and things like that. Distillation is distilling, and oh my kitty, coagulation. maybe it needs to, like blood, it might need to uh, age, like a liquid that needs to coagulate to scoop maybe something off the top of it. I'm thinking. Um, Sorry, Sophie Soaps. Yeah, yeah, kitty. I got to read the thing because I can't read it. Red Dice says it would be cool, for example, you have the swamp goblins that are different from the mountain goblins because their shaman have access to different ingredients. Oh yeah, yeah, hell's yeah, specializations of a thing. Like yeah, like Zamara says, speciesization. Yeah, why not? Why wouldn't the swamp goblins be able to have um shells that have poisonous gases, swamp gases in it, and they use the they have a pouch filled with frogs that they lick. Right. They hey the other goblin has like a a glob of honey in its hand, and they're like, what's the glob of honey? And then all of a sudden there's like swarms of wasps or bees that come out of the woods, and then they take the glob of honey and throw it at the PCs, and they're like, what the hell? And one of the PCs gets, I put up my shield. Oh, no, it sticks to your shield. And the swarm of bees are coming after you. You're like, what the hell? Damn it! It could be very simple like that. It could be more complicated if those goblins drink a concoction from the hag that's out in the swamp and turns into a troll. Right now, the mountain goblins might be very different, especially if the mountain goblins have like um, something ore based or aquifer based or carbon based, something like that. What are some minerals? Limestone. My brain is not working. Sulfur based. Yeah. So yeah, they could have lots of those, and the it could be internalized. Something, it just so happens that their skin absorbs it. It's kind of in their meals, and so they have something natural as part of it. Or it could be externalized, where and one or more people who have the skill of alchemy is trading or being forced to give it to the goblins that do the thing. Yep, wasp nest bombs. Yep, insectoid goblins, hobgoblins, flying bugbears. Hell yeah, hell yeah. Heck, Mike Gould is on the channel. He has his own um, non the ability to not be sued by WotC, that he has insectoid versions of mind flayers in his world. So yeah, reflavoring, reskinning, reusing, giving, you know, we have to flip the script on a bunch of our, so it's not so boring anymore. And so, how many times have we've heard of people just go, oh, well, there's three goblins with no description, nothing new added to it. So changing their skin, changing their tactics, changing their capabilities and such, and just giving some of them some really cool other abilities too would be very, very useful. I often wonder why it's known statistically in that trolls gain certain abilities from the flesh that they eat of the monsters they eat, because they eat everything. I never knew why they never wrote down, like, oh, here's like D10, roll a D10 for what kind of monsters they've been eating, and here's the abilities that those monsters have. Owl bears? No, I have foul bears. I love mixing and matching owl bears. First of all, um, we both there are different types of owls and there's different types of bears. So you can absolutely positively mix and match, like a winter, an Arctic owl bear would definitely be an Arctic owl and a polar bear. But an owl bear is just two different animals. So why not have a random table of the animal at the head and the animal at the ass end, and just create random things, right? Like, why wouldn't you have hawk tigers, or which I guess would be a griffin without the wings? Why wouldn't you have wolf spiders? Oh, I think they already exist. Yeah, yep, a gorilla bear, right? Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't I just feel like there's like gaps in T from TSR up until modern day that were never filled in. Like, why wouldn't you have a random table of that stuff? Like, here's a random predatory animal at the front. Here's a random tough ass monster on the back end, and then like, why wouldn't we have snake? Um, I don't know, snake cheetahs, or why wouldn't we have wolf turtles, or why wouldn't we have? Now you could get a little, since owl bears have kind of moved into the cute spectrum. You could have things like giraffes and goats and rabbits and chipmunks and raccoons mixed with like um, bonobos and platypuses, and like you could make like mix two cute things together to make it ultra cute. Like it's like a double rainbow. Uh, yeah, bears twice as big with two heads. Well, we already have the two-headed death's head dog. So why don't we have more of those mutagenic effects? Like, you could literally have a different class of monster, like monstrosities. It's a categorization of monsters, and just have mutagenic effects. Like, oh, take a monster and here's a D10, a D12. Let's go with D12s because they're always treated like the redheaded stepchild of the Dungeons and Dragons world, right? And you could just have a random generator of like, oh, this creature has two heads now, or it also has tentacles, or whatever. Yeah, the second edition DMG has a random demon generator that would be useful for this. Hell yeah. Yeah. And Drew says, oops, the German game Dark Eye has all kinds of combinations that simply under the category of chimera, which there's another creature that deserves to have a random applique of flavor and effects and stuff like that. Here, hey, here we bears. We bears. I love it. The random esoteric creature book for Lamentations of the Flame Prince is great for this. Esoteric. Yep. Oh man. Yeah. Exactly. Although I never knew. Before we get out of here, here's another thing. This is somewhat alchemical. An aside. Why is there artificial scarcity when it comes to damage, origin, and creature types? So in Dungeons and Dragons, we know that like fire and acid is very common, but like psychic and force damage is more rare. And my question is why? There's no, at this point, there's no need. Why do we have a werber? That's got to be, is that German? That's got to be something else, foreign. Be Werber. Hey, Sophie Soph. Yeah. Anyway, the producer of the show is telling me that our time is up. So, guys, thank you so much. Tomorrow is the day of construction, where we're going to leave this chemical concoctions and things, and we're going to talk about construction. Dungeons that are being constructed, castles, aqueducts, bridges, so many other things, boats and things like that. Where bear? Oh man, yeah. Where is the bear of the werebears, and why aren't lycanthropes and druids all on the same page? These are the questions I'm asking you guys. No, I'm not. It's just I'm being silly. But tomorrow's going to be the day of construction. Please bring your hard hats. Yep. Happy Mountain Festival plus time to get constructive on Vice Friday. Yeah. Is that a real day? Anyway, guys, have a great one. I will see you guys later. Thank you so much for being part of the show. Peace.